After he became associate director at the Stephen Joseph Theatre in the Round in Scarborough, Robin Herford had to find himself a Christmas ghost story. And that's when he came across Susan Hill's novel, The Woman in Black. Little did he know that it would become the longest running ghost story in the West End. This is how it happened.
Had my season all planned, and I had about £1,000 in my production budget and enough money in my actor budget to pay for 4 actors to rehearse and play. Rehearse for 3 weeks, play for 3 weeks. So I thought, well, we'll do an extra play. So Stephen Malatrat, who was my assistant director and the resident playwright of the company, I said, look, I want you to write me a ghost story for Christmas. Okay? You can either adapt an existing one or you can write an original one. But whatever you do, I can't afford more than 4 actors. The set and costumes can't cost more than £1,000. And we'll do it in the bar, because I had a children's show running morning and afternoon, our version of a pantomime, as it were, in the main house. So he wasn't very impressed. Well, what sort of commission's that? Anyway, he went off and he came back a couple of days later and said, have you read The Woman in Black by Susan Hill, which was a novel that had come out 5 years previously. This is 1987. And you know, about 5 years ago, it had a very nice but modest success as a ghost story. Stephen had read it on holiday in Greece, and he said, I think it might work. I said, well, give it to me, I'll read it overnight. So I read it overnight. It's only a little novella, it's only 120 pages or something. So I read it, and I said, yeah, but maybe you didn't hear. There can only be 4 characters, and there are about a dozen in here. He said, well, I've had an idea. I might be able to give you some change. And he went away and he wrote this adaptation of The Woman in Black for 2 speaking parts. And it was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. And I can't tell you how delighted I was that it was so good, because I had previously, I'd commissioned 2 other plays from him, the first of which, about white witchcraft, had been fantastic and done really well. The second one, it hadn't really worked. And we'd advertised it, and actually I had to pull it, and we had to do something else. And I thought, I've cut him off at the legs. I've destroyed his confidence as a writer. And he was quite a thin-skinned character. It's not any longer, unfortunately, but he was a lovely guy. And anyway, he gave me the script of The Woman in Black. He said, well, don't think it's any good, but you know, see what you think. And I went back just thinking, please, God, let it be good enough to do. Please let me be able to run for 3.5 weeks in a 70-seater studio bar theatre. And I read it, and I phoned him at 2 in the morning. And I said, I hope I've woken you up, because I think it's fantastic. And we did it
at the beginning, with us in that 70-seater theatre, did you have the effects that the show now has? The sound effects, the lighting, the stuff that makes it really work, apart from the great script?
Yes, we did. They're more sophisticated now, but many of the sound effects are still the original sound effects. For example, the scream that terrifies everyone, the single scream that comes at an unspecified time, was recorded by my 9-year-old son, Oliver, who is now a university lecturer. And I said, I need a child scream. So I said, Ollie, could you pop in and you know, just give me. He said, how long for? I said about 4 to 5 seconds, something like that. A lot of the sound effects I do, as like station masters
Yes.
and you know, announcers and priests and weird birds and things. And my wife Leslie, who played the original Woman in Black, she also recorded the letters and the thing. So you know, it's a family affair. Interestingly, Mark, we you know, it's run all this time at the Fortune, but just recently I took it to New York. I mean, it was running in New York when lockdown came. It's my first show I've ever had running in New York, and of course, lockdown arrives. But this was The Woman in Black taken back to its roots. And we did it in a place called McKittrick's Hotel, which isn't a hotel and it isn't a theatre, but it's a small space. And we crammed it in. And Michael Holt, who was the original designer, came over to New York and redesigned. And two British actors went over to do it over there. And so it was sort of like going home, going back to its roots, like a sort of an unplugged performance, you know.
What a great experience for them.
It was great. It was great. I mean, what people tend to forget is actually over the course of 30 years, we have enhanced it and we've made it, you know, terrific. But there's a sort of rawness of bringing it back to a very intimate. I mean, you know, our problem now, we're hopeful we can restart it, but with social distancing, we're going to lose an awful lot of seats.
Yeah, so, because they're so close at the Fortune Theatre. Yeah. How did it transfer to London from Scarborough? Did the word get around? Producers came to see it and said, yes, I want it. What happened?
No, Stephen and I spent a year. It finished, we played December 87, just into I think the 6th of January 88. And for the next year, Stephen and I went round knocking on doors with the script. And we finally, seeing if we could find someone who would be interested in taking it to London. And we finally found Peter Wilson, who was a friend of Stephen's. He'd worked with him before. I'd met him a couple of times. He came up to see the play about white witchcraft that Stephen had written that I directed the year before. And so we knew each other. And he was a young, bullish producer. And he took a punt on it. And I mean, thank God someone did, and thank God he did. He mortgaged his house at one stage with his children and his wife living in it to keep the show running. And you know, that takes balls and guts and I don't know what else. The lovely John Strickland and Dominic Letts had been the original Arthur Kipps and the actor in Scarborough. But we had to find people who would be recognisable. John Deteen, who had been was a huge success on television in things like To Serve Them All My Days, wonderful Delta series, and Charles Kay, who was a mainstay of the National Theatre and television and all sorts of films and things, and they agreed to do it, and they were wonderful, and we did it at the Lyric Hammersmith, for 7 weeks, and that was all it was going to be. It was going to be a 7-week run at the Lyric Hammersmith, and for me, I thought, that's absolutely fine. If I can achieve that, that's just great, because I just want to see whether it can transcend the barriers of a small provincial seaside town to 70 people in a cramped bar. Will it work in a real theatre? And it did. But the critics were really. We had some lovely notices, and on the strength of those, we moved into the West End. And we went first to the Strand Theatre, which is now the Novello, which is where Mamma Mia was playing just recently. Yeah. And we were given a 6-week contract there. We could have it for 6 weeks. And if we did over a certain figure in the box office, we could then stay for another 3 months. And Peter said, all right, fine. So we did it, and we managed it, and we managed to hit the targets. We were a tiny outfit, And what came in instead, which in a way fitted the Strand much better, was a couple of tours that Duncan Weldon had out, starring Felicity Kendall and Alan Bates, Much Ado About Nothing, and Ivanov as a double. And so that came. Fine. We were booted out unceremoniously, so we ended up at the Playhouse, beautiful, at the end of Northumberland Avenue, but no one goes there. And we started hemorrhaging money because no one would come. And finally, we were moved out of there and we got the Fortune, which is where we'd wanted to be in the first place, because the Fortune is the perfect theatre for us. It's the perfect size. It's the perfect sort of little, unobtrusive gem of a theatrical delight. And we moved in there on the 8th of June, 89, and we were running until lockdown. And hopefully the set's still there, the costumes are still there, everyone else is still there. The actors, I had a text from one of the understudies the other day saying, we were so bored in lockdown that I did a complete line run of the play with my fellow understudy over the phone the other day. So they're already, the actors are already waiting, and hopefully we can get started again at some point.
For people who haven't seen the play, because not everybody's seen it, and by the way, go see this play, because I resisted seeing it for a long time. It had been on a long time before I went to see it. And it was actually Peter Wilson who said something like, do you want to be scared to death in the theatre? And I said, and he said, you should go and see this play. And he sat me in the right place. I won't say any more. And I really was literally terrified. And of course, completely bowled over and thrilled to get a chance to do it and work with you. That's a different story. For those people who haven't seen it, the two actors, they're not related in the play. They have nothing really. They are two complete polar opposites who come together. So what are you looking for when you're recasting a younger actor and older actor? What are you looking for?
Two very different creatures. With the older actor, I want someone who is basically a character actor, who is comfortable becoming other people. With the younger actor, I want someone who is supremely comfortable in his own skin, playing himself, because the character that he is asked to play in The Woman in Black is absolutely tailor-made for this young, cocky, exuberant, confident actor. He's young. But he's. I used to remember when Kenneth Branagh started Renaissance, the theatre company.
Yes.
It was about 35 years ago now, and it was, well, I could do that. I could play Henry V. Who's going to direct it? Well, I can do that, I think. Yeah, I could do that. Who's going to raise the money? Well, I think I could do that. I've got David Parfitt who could help me. He could help me. We could do that. Who's going to do the, and he does. And he goes on, and he is supremely confident, and yet very personable. The younger man has to be able to engage with his audience. And I have to say, and I say this, it's not just because I'm talking to you, but you were brilliant at just talking to the audience and bringing them into the story, your story that you were telling. And it's a real knack. And it comes, all your experiences as a presenter was hugely helpful in this. But you get to do everything, You get to scare people, you get to scare yourself, you get to scream.
I was terrified, Robin. I think I've told you this. I was terrified because I'm quite scared anyway. If there's a vibe, I kind of pick it up. I've never seen ghosts, but I'm always thinking there's a vibe and leaving lights on and things. And I remember Susan Hill came to see, because I think I was in the 5th year of the show. And Susan Hill came, and she said, you were terrified. And I said, no, because I'm terrified, Susan. You don't understand. It's not really acting. I am terrified. The whole play, every single show terrified me.
Yeah.
What about the audiences? I mean, you must have had people fainting and people having to leave the theatre and stuff like that. Has that happened?
Yes, it has. It has. There's a lovely story. I was watching I try and see the show, when it was running in London. I try and go every sort of 5 or 6 weeks, just to show them I love them, really, and buy them a drink afterwards and say, keep going, lads. Only another 40 weeks. So. But one matinee I've been to see it, and there was a lot of schooled young people. This play is wonderful, and they are so wonderful for this play because it gets to them. They get it. It's difficult language. Some of it's sort of pastiche Victorian, but I've never had anyone say I can't understand it. And people. You quite often get school parties come in, and they can be a bit cocky to start with. And they say, "Well, I'm not going to be scared, etc." But anyway, on this occasion,
draws them in.
About 15 minutes into the show, I was sitting in the back row, and I saw this girl of 15, 16, sneak out and go into the bar. We had a lovely barman there called Peter, who looked after her and sat down. She was terrified. And in the interval, all her friends went into the bar. Said, "Oh, Rose, you're missing it. It's wonderful. You might." And she said, "No, I'm not going anywhere near it." So, and I overheard it, and I said to the teacher, I said, "Look, I'm sitting in the back row. If she would like to come and sit next to me, I promise on my honor that I will whisper and warn her of anything that's going to happen that is frightening before it happens. But I'd hate for her to miss it all. So, would she like to go?" And she did. And it worked fine. And she was so pleased with herself because she'd actually gone back in and seen it. But a couple of weeks later, there was another school girl who was hyperventilating on the pavement. She'd gone out and she was sitting outside hyperventilating, and the teachers were around her. And I said, "Look, I know what. Why doesn't she come back?" No, she just wouldn't. Just wouldn't. I mean, we've had people, we've had to take extended intervals because someone had to be, an ambulance had to take them away in the intervals, having sort of kiss of life on the aisle, and but I mean, it's been running for 30 years. I can't it's sort of law of averages.
You've directed it all over the world, and I'm just interested to know, does a Japanese audience scream and get involved? Does it work in a place like Japan?
And they're so well behaved, the audiences in Japan. They don't make a whisper. I mean, you sort of want a bit of chatter, and before the thing starts, and telling jokes, and they just sit there as if they're in church, but when it starts, and you see, they believe in a spirit world. They have a very different view to our Western skeptical rationalist. Well, I've never seen a ghost. I've got an auntie who's got a cousin who once saw one, possibly thought it's probably a trick of the wind, but they're not like that at all. They sort of believe in the spirit world, and
they take it on.
They take it and run with it. I love doing it over there. It's just great. And I didn't know, did you, when the Japanese company came to the Fortune for a week? Because in 2007, I just finished.
When the what company? Sorry,
the Japanese company brought Woman in Black.
No,
Japanese.
I wasn't there.
Well, it was extraordinary. I mean, I've been doing a tour over there, and one night, for something to say, really, drinks afterwards, I said, "Hey, wouldn't it be fun if you were to bring the Japanese version to London, and I would bring a mate over, and we'd do the English version on your set, and you do it on our set?" And I thought nothing more of it, really. But then next time I was over there, they said, "Oh, we think we've got the money." And they had. They'd raised the money. They'd got the Japanese cultural arm of the government mobilized, and they made, and so they came and they played it for a week in Japanese at the Fortune. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Robin, just fascinating listening to you about Alan and about Woman in Black. You know, I just hope Alan's plays go on forever. I hope Woman in Black goes on forever. I hope you go on forever. And anybody who's watching this who hasn't seen an 8-1, go see an 8-1 because he's a genius. And if you haven't seen Woman in Black, go see Woman in Black. And any actors watching this who haven't worked with this guy, my guest today, try and work with him because you'll have a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I mean that. Robin, thank you so much. And let's hope we get out of this situation soon and everything, because I know you had a show that was, you were just about to do something. Were you about to do
a bunch of amateurs?
Yes.
Yeah, I had 5 shows running, and at the time, and I had one that I was due to start rehearsing. Never been so busy. It'll be fine. We'll be okay.
Be fine. Yeah. Yes, that's what we've got to hang on to.
Indeed.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Thank you so much for taking time out today on behalf of Acting for Others. And really hope you've enjoyed watching this. If you're watching it on the YouTube channel, just go back to the Acting for Others website, hit the donate button if you possibly can. That'll take you to Just Giving, and just give whatever you can to help people in our industry who are not having a great time right now. Robin Herford, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much for watching that conversation. If you've enjoyed it, please go to the Acting for Others website, which is actingforothers.co.uk, and hit the donate button, which will take you immediately to the Just Giving page. And please give as little or as much as you possibly can to help those performers and people in the industry who really need your help financially right now. Thanks a lot.